Our policy is crystal clear. From this point, any country that formally makes a demand for reparations from this country, a reformed government, if we win the next general election, will immediately halt visa issuances to that country. And we've already made clear that we would end foreign aid too.
Hello, wonderful people. Welcome back once again to KBS Studio. Please, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, do well to subscribe. Like the videos you watch. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section. So in today's video is a quick update concerning the UK decision at the moment. The United Kingdom is reportedly considering banning up to 17 countries, including Ghana, amid growing attention over cause of slavery reparation. As global conversation intensify, many African nations are pushing the narrative that slavery remains one of the most inhumane acts in the human history, demanding accountability and justice.
Reform consultant Zia Youssef, I don't actually know what his former job is. He's had several jobs. He's also said he left the party, then he came back to the party, but that's not important. He says he will block the visa from any countries that are attempting to demand slavery reparations from the UK. What's really interesting is right, this conversation comes up every year because of Independence Day, and every country around the world has understood the illegal pillaging of their resources and their people over a very long period of time, where people were resources at the time. But they've noticed what that trend was. They've noticed the value that it's been to these new countries. They've observed the treatment of the countries that stole, took, and pillaged the host country, and now they want some form of repair. Now, what's really interesting is I just think that Britain mismanaged the Commonwealth incredibly. By the way, if you get to the point where you have leadership and ownership of all these different colonies, and maybe you cannot afford to maintain them after the Second World War because you've used all your money, but the strategic alliance you could have gone into for resources would have been astronomical if it was managed properly, but it hasn't been. Anyway, the greater point is that acting as a support network for these countries in the global stage would have meant that all of these countries would have had education, they would have had infrastructure, they would have had a share of their own resources, and Britain would still be profiting from the global. And I'm pretty sure some of these countries would take that benefit. Some of the citizens would definitely take that benefit back today because they're unhappy with how their countries are run as I think third world is a outdated term, but a oppressed nation on a global scale. Antigua and Barbuda, which is my host country, Jamaica as well, but Antigua and Barbuda is where my grandparents are from. Bahamas, Barbados, Belize, Dominica, Ghana, Grenada, Guyana, Haiti, Jamaica, Kenya, Montserrat, Nigeria, St. Kitts, St. Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Grenadines, Suriname, and Trinidad and Tobago. Basically all the cool countries, all the vibiest countries, all the best countries for food, dance, music, culture, and people, they're going to try and ban. Well, I think the first thing that they should do is threaten to ban them back, because this idea that Britain believes that it can export itself into any country that it wants with all of this privilege while denouncing and diminishing the returns of everybody else is nonsense. So I would immediately threaten the exact same thing back to them. But more importantly, Britain needs these countries more than it realizes. This is half of your football teams there and more. So continue with your empty threats. And Zia Youssef, you charlatan, we're bored of you.
The UK is not playing with these Africans or Caribbeans. They say if you ask for reparations because of the transatlantic slave trade, you're not coming to their country.
Reform UK would block visas from anyone from countries which have demanded reparations over slavery. This would halt legal migration from 17 countries that are calling for financial compensation over Britain's role in the slave trade. The ban would block people from getting work, study, and temporary visas. Reform Zia Youssef has said the bank is closed and the door is locked for anyone who wanted to use history as a weapon to drain our treasury. So which 17 countries would be affected? African nations Nigeria, Kenya, and Ghana are among the countries which have called for compensation, as well as 11 Caribbean countries, including the Bahamas, Barbados, and Jamaica. Reform's announcement comes as the government and the royal family face pressure to agree to talks on reparations. Experts have estimated these would amount to trillions of pounds.
They have a point. It's like y'all double dipping, because everybody benefited from the transatlantic slave trade. You take the Caribbeans, they got countries out of the transatlantic slave trade. There was indigenous people in these islands before the transatlantic slave trade took place, but afterwards, now the descendants of those slaves are basically over those countries. When the oppressed become the oppressors, that's the sum of it. Right, and you talk about Africa, especially Ghana and Nigeria, they was begging the British not to abolish slavery because it was going to impact their economy. I feel like the U.S. should adopt the same the same policies. If your country is talking about reparations from the United States when the United States had nothing to do with it, the only people that should be talking about reparations from the United States is Black Americans. But yeah, let me know what y'all think about this policy, because this is from the Reform UK party. If they become the dominant force in Parliament, this is what they're going to implement. Shout out to Nigel. Let me be specific. The only people deserve reparations from the transatlantic slave trade in America, the United States, is Black Americans. And that Ghanaian president, yeah, he greedy.
Our policy is crystal clear. From this point, any country that formally makes a demand for reparations from this country, a reform government, if we win the next general election, will immediately halt visa issuances to that country. And we've already made clear that we would end foreign aid too. Britain was the first major power to prohibit slavery, and it cost Britain thousands of sailors. Britain spent the modern equivalent of billions of pounds on enforcing that slave trade, the prohibition on slavery. So I think Britain actually deserves a lot of credit for that.
I understand that your parents emigrated to...
Now, for those of you wondering who this man is, his name is Zia Yusuf, and he's the spokesperson for the Reform UK party, where they are planning that when they come to power, they will be banning the issuance of visa to all the countries that are demanding reparation, including Jamaica, Barbados, Nigeria, and then Ghana. Now, the funny thing is, his parents are also from Sri Lanka, and the foreign minister of that country is also demanding reparation. So I'm looking forward to see what will happen. Now, let's even put that one aside. He was talking about the fact that the UK played a huge role in abolition of the slave trade. One thing that they never talk about is what really led to the abolition. The resistance that was rising in Africa and the Caribbean, where there were people like the Maroons, before people like William Wilberforce came in. They never talk about the fact that after this abolition, they shifted to raw materials in Africa, how the economy once depended on their colonies, to the extent that they scrambled for Africa in the 1880s. A main thing that led to the retrogression of Africa. They don't talk about the fact that they came to recruit Africans to go and fight in a world war that they had no role in, promising them a lot of money. When they came back from the World War and they were demanding for their money, they were shot and killed in 1948. Have the families of these people been compensated? The person who did it said it on camera.
I gave the order to fire, and nothing happened. And I retreated back onto the firing party and tore a rifle out of the hands of one of the men, and I myself fired at a man in front who was urging the crowd forward, and he was killed. And I think I fired a total of another 5 shots. And the crowd turned around and made off.
African leaders lament over the crimes of white slavers in the past, I begin to lose my mind over what these same African leaders are doing, sending us back into economic slavery with these same white men every single year. Ladies and gentlemen, if these guys are so evil, why do we still have to depend on them for economic survival? Does that make sense? Nigel Farage and his micro party could have never spoken any ill against an African country if we, in the first place, had put our house in order. These British should have been the ones seeking to amend relationships with us, not the other way around. They should have begged for our mercy. They should have been begging for our indulgence. Ladies and gentlemen, we should have never been looking for any kind of acceptance or begging for reparations of any sort. This should be the question we all ask our African leaders. The gold, the bauxite, the timber, the oil and gas. What have we done with all of that since they left?
An opposition party in the UK is asking that the visas given to African countries that are asking for slavery reparation, no, we should ban them. Reform UK has caused a global backlash after proposing a ban on visas for citizens of countries demanding slavery reparation, describing such calls as insulting and insisting the UK should not pay for the past. The controversial stance comes amid renewed international pressure following a recent United Nations resolution declaring the transatlantic slave trade as the gravest crime against humanity, a move backed by the African Union and Caribbean community. Leaders including John Dramani Mahama has intensified calls for reparations, arguing that the long-term effects of slavery continue to impact African and Caribbean nations. Reform UK's proposal, however, has drawn criticisms from advocacy groups and regional leaders who warn it could strain diplomatic ties and undermine ongoing efforts to address historical injustices. Now, beyond that, when you go on X, people are saying that the guy that is even spearheading this whole visa ban thing, no, sir, he is even Indian. He is not like, you know, full British man like that too. Some Indian guy that his parents migrated from India in the 19somethings and went to the UK. No, yes, I know. And you immigrants, and you are standing there and you are not serious. Go and see the comment section on X before.
Reform UK would block visas from anyone from countries which have demanded reparations over slavery. This would halt legal migration from 17 countries that are calling for financial compensation over Britain's role in the slave trade. The ban would block people from getting work, study and temporary visas. Reform Zia Youssef has said the bank is closed and the door is locked for anyone who wanted to use history as a weapon to drain our treasury. So which 17 countries would be affected? African nations Nigeria, Kenya and Ghana are among the countries which have called for compensation, as well as 11 Caribbean countries including the Bahamas, Barbados and Jamaica. Reform's announcement comes as the government and the royal family face pressure to agree to talks on reparations. Experts have estimated these would amount to trillions of pounds. Starmer previously rejected reparations when meeting Caribbean nations at the Commonwealth Summit in 2024. King Charles has never commented or made any formal apology for the slave trade on behalf of the UK, but he did make a speech conveying his greatest sorrow and regret at colonial wrongdoings during a visit to Kenya in 2023.
So as an African, I don't think there is a way out to say I support or I do not support. The human slavery in Africa is one of the inhumane things, just as the president of Ghana stated. And as an African, you should understand this. Maybe some of these people who are saying, I like to say no, or I don't want to say yes, you know, anyhow, or this thing, visit some of these slavery sites or some of these historic places and you understand what really went on. Maybe some of you, when you read the books, the emotions and the feeling, you just see it as a contest in the book. But I dare you me, when you really visit the land, when you really visit these historic places and you get to know what happened there, how people were treated as not even humans, not even animals, lesser than anything else. How humans, how our forefathers were treated. You won't think twice to vote against this thing that ever happened to the black culture. So with me, I always vote against it. I don't say I hate white people or I hate foreigners, because although we blame them for what they did, but this is a new generation. And the reason why Africa over the years is pushing forward, and a country like Ghana is also pushing forward this narrative, it's not because of the popularity or to gain something out of it. It is to remind the world that what happened is very, very bad and beyond bad. Okay, and this is one of the ways to state it clear that is what happened to our fathers, and we are aware of it, and we have the document, the history, the places that all these things took place, and the hope and the fight with the belief and strong hands together that this doesn't repeat itself. This is why some African countries, or this is why our leader is fighting for. It's not just for the reparation or just for the popularity or for his name's sake. No, it's to state it clear that this is what happened to our forefathers, and we are aware and we don't want this to repeat itself. Yes, so please, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, do well to subscribe. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you.